Hello everyone, welcome back to the workshop. Today we're going to be doing a lot of work on the power hacksaw. Well, actually I've been doing a lot of work on the power hacksaw over the last few days, and actually a couple of clips I took a few weeks ago. I've been doing a lot of things to it. I have all of the footage from forging the frame, the bow. I have a lot of other footage of me machining the female section of the dovetail. So let's get to it. Firstly, we're going to take a look at the time lapse I took of me forging that power hacksaw frame, the part that actually holds the blade. I know I've been calling a lot of things the power hacksaw frame because I don't quite know the proper terms for them. I think this part is called the bow. I've heard it called the bow. Anyways, let's get to it.
This one is called Saskatchewan in 1881.
That was a good year.
It was a great year.
One of the best years in Saskatchewan.
Yep.
Mr. Toronto man, go away from my door. You got my weed and canola seed, you're asking me for more. Better fly, for I produce my 44. I'm just a prairie boy, never meant none no harm. Spend my days making wages out on the Martin's farm. No eastern boys are gonna twist my arm. It's so damn cold out here, the wind will cut you half in two. I ain't kidding now, my old plow is frozen to my mule. I've been living off ice cold rainbow stew. Don't be picking fights with no Mennonites. Don't be raising cane while they're planting grain and working through the night. They're gonna let you know if you ain't acting right. Mr. Toronto man, go away from my door. You got my weed and canola seed, you're asking me for more. Better fly, for I produce my 44. Better fly, for I produce my 44.
Yeah, that's nice.
All right. Colter Wall is sitting here with us. He gave Bo a ride here, I guess, and is.
So as you might realize, I lost a bunch of footage. These female slideways, I took about 2 hours worth of footage on them. A lot of milling, bit of heavy milling, bit of drilling. Lost all of it. Whenever I went and cleansed my phone of old footage, I guess I accidentally deleted that. But you guys didn't really miss a whole lot. I wish I could have shown you guys what went down, but that happens sometimes. The power hacksaw is really looking like a power hacksaw. The next piece of the puzzle is going to be the hydraulic downfeed cylinder. I want to get that done before I do too much work. on the forged frame. I've done absolutely no machining on it yet, but I know as soon as I get a blade on here, as soon as I get it connected up to the crankshaft, I'm going to want to start cutting stuff. But before I do that, I need to get the hydraulic downfeed cylinder done. I need to make a small tank for it. I need to make the eccentric. I need to make what is essentially a pitman. And I already have a piece of steel that is shaped perfectly. It was for another project, but yeah, you can repurpose stuff. It's the perfect shape for the pivot that will actually mount to the hacksaw base. I think I'm going to start culling this down here, the base, the first part that we machined. This up here, the frame, and this here, the bow. That way, if I say the frame, you know I mean this part, which goes up and down. If I say the base, it's down here. If I say the bow, it's right here. That way I'm not calling everything the frame. It gets very confusing after a minute. So this here is my hydraulic cylinder that I'll be using. It is too tall, so I will have it at an angle. It's about 1.5 inches by about an 8-inch stroke. Much perfect size for this application. So I'm going to bring you guys over to the lathe, and the first thing we will make, first part of the puzzle, will be the eccentric.
Sun is rising high, burning into the day. I will say goodbye, I'll be going away. Brush away my doubts, what tomorrow will hold. I'm feeling fine for now, going down the road to a city to sing about the trees and the wind, about the hills in the spring and the rivers that bend, the rocky deep pass and the poppies and ponies running through.
So now that I have all the parts for my hydraulic downfeed system, let me explain how it's going to work. Firstly, you have this hydraulic cylinder, and then whenever it is drawn up by the frame, it will be filled with oil, and then gravity will be pushing it down. Now, the way it works is I essentially control the flow of how much fluid is allowed to exit the cylinder as it is going down. I'm going to control that flow with a small valve. I will not have a check valve in it for whenever I have to retract the saw, bring the saw back up. I will just simply open this valve. It might become annoying over time to have to do that, but I'm alright with that. I'm okay with that small trade-off. Now, that is how it would work if this were a bandsaw. Bandsaws, they cut in one direction continuously. They do not need to, they don't change directions. Power hacksaws change directions. And in one of those directions, you do not want to cut, or you do not want the blade to be contacting the workpiece. That is where this eccentric comes in. The eccentric will ride on a bushing that is in the frame, and it will be driven by a sprocket. I have a matching sprocket on the actual crankshaft. That way it is a 1-to-1 ratio. I chose a 50 thousandths lift because I think that that is enough for it to lift the blade up sufficiently to not drag the teeth, but it's also not so much that it will push this cylinder down. See, as it rotates, it is going to be pushing on the cylinder. It will basically shock the cylinder and push in a spike of pressure. It will spike the pressure in the cylinder whenever the frame has to move up. If I have my eccentric set to maybe a 1/8 inch or a 1/4 inch lift, that might push this cylinder down maybe 50 thousandths, 60 thousandths. Then whenever it goes and brings the blade back down, Now the blade is 50 or 60 thousandths lower than it should be. It'll basically slam the blade into the workpiece. I don't want that. I want it to be relatively gentle. I don't mind it kind of contacting the workpiece hard or with a heavier cut, but I want to regulate that quite severely, and I don't want that to be damaging to the blade. So that's the system I came up with. These two parts are mild steel. They will wear out eventually. The bushing in here on the frame actually is made out of copper pipe. If that ever does wear out, depending on how quickly it wears out, I may replace it with a bronze bushing, or I can just take another chunk of copper pipe that's 2.5 inches long and cut it, put it in there, ream it, then it'll be good. Very simple, very easy to maintain. These parts are very easy to get out of the saw, so that makes it much easier to service too, and these will be heavily greased. So hopefully they should last a while. If they don't, I can design around that. I can bore this guy out and put in a bushing or do whatever I would like. And so, next part, we'll be getting this pivot mounted onto the frame, or onto the base actually. So now that the hydraulic cylinder is essentially mounted in its final position, I realize I've made a bit of a mistake. This arm ended up being, or the frame of the hacksaw ended up being a bit too short, about 1 inch short. It worked out with the bow and with the capacity I wanted, but this hydraulic cylinder is a bit too long. I can't move it forwards, otherwise it will run into the vise, and it causes other problems. And I can't move the hydraulic cylinder backwards to shorten the length, because the chain still has to run there, and I would have to make up, actually right now I'm probably going to have to make some kind of a system, something for the chain to rub against so that it doesn't hit the actual cylinder. So I'll have to consult with some people on whether or not I can actually shorten this hydraulic cylinder. I only need to shorten it by 1 inch, 1.5 inches maybe. 1.5 inches would certainly be fine, because I don't need the full stroke of this cylinder. I only need 7 or so inches, 6.5 inches, which will work out about perfectly for what I want to shorten that. The valve is going to sit. The valve will sit at the front of the machine towards the bottom so that it is easy to get to and it is safe to get to. You're not having to reach your hand into any moving parts. It's just going to sit right over here. We're also going to place the reservoir for the oil. Instead of using that small brass valve I showed you guys earlier, I'm going to use this valve, because I can take the handle off and I can actually attach this to a plate. I didn't realize that I couldn't attach that other valve to a plate or something, attach it to something. And I need to be able to do that. I'm going to put it on this copper plate. I essentially just have to drill a hole, put the handle on. And what I will do to that copper plate is I will put a dial on it with sort of arbitrary numbers, so that there's a scale on it from, say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe up to 10. That way I can very accurately know, hey, if I'm going this speed, I can go and set the hydraulic valve to 2 or 3. That way I have a measurable flow rate for this cylinder. That way I'm not kind of doing everything by feel. So if I have the speed set to about half, then I know, or I will be able to know, what speed or what I should set my valve for. So I'll get to mounting that, and we'll figure out where to put this tank, and figure out how to plumb it into the system too. So now that I've drilled the hole and marked out where I would like my divisions to be. Up here will be on, down here will be off. Now I'm going to take some number and letter stamps, put an on up here, an off down here, and numbers running down, starting from 1 and going to whatever this is. So let's get to that, and then this part will be pretty much done. I didn't polish it up completely. I don't really need to. It's just a little nameplate essentially. I did it just to make it look nicer for the marking and engraving. So let's get it done. So this little plate here is done. Nameplate, all the numbers all the way up to 12. Those are completely arbitrary. They're really just for reference. I need to make a custom handle for this, and I did make a mistake. Not only did I double stamp, that is in the off position and that is the on position. I could just claim that that's for the lock, but it was just a mistake. Still, I do have these numbers down here, which will help with keeping my feeds relatively consistent, along with the dial on the DC drive. This should ensure that, I get relatively consistent results. So the small plate has been loosely mounted, holes drilled, and I believe I'm going to put this small reservoir down here, but to do that I'll have to weld on the hacksaw base. So as I said earlier, I'm hoping to get this hacksaw done by the end of the week. I do still have quite a bit of work to do, but I'm definitely over the halfway point. I'm going to be bringing it outside, doing a little bit of welding on it. I was kind of hoping to not do any welding on it after I machined the base, but the welding that I will be doing will really help the machine, and it shouldn't warp the base any. After that, I'll clean it off and paint it, and then I'll have to break out my precision level, get it level, and start adjusting it. I know that a lot of those bearing surfaces are not perfectly perpendicular or parallel with a lot of the other surfaces, and I have a precision level, which means I can use that to align everything up just almost perfectly. It's about half thousandths within 1 foot, which is maybe 1/8 of a human hair over 12 inches. So I think that should be good enough for an old hacksaw, and technically a new hacksaw, an old style of hacksaw. Hopefully I can get that hydraulic cylinder cut down. Otherwise I don't have very many options to shorten the stroke. I'd have to get a different cylinder, make my own cylinder, or find a different way to mount it. Mounting that cylinder, then the way it is configured, would be quite difficult. It is just a hair too long, just an inch. I might be able to use, say, a bottle jack, but I don't really want to. That's a bit too hokey pokey for me. I might be able to make my own cylinder again, but I'm trying not to. So we'll see what I can do. I'm probably going to modify that off camera, away from you guys, just so that I can get it right without worrying about, am I filming this correctly? I'd like to get that 100% good without any issues. So please like and subscribe if you would like to see more content. Obviously I'm going to be putting out quite a bit more in the next week. After that, I don't really know what I'm going to be doing. I'm probably going to be filming the building of my tailgate for my 64 F100. After that, I don't know. Just kind of get projects every once in a while and probably film those. So have a good day.